Warning: this short story includes the use of profanity. All the Time in the World by Robert Bennett. Imagine if someone asked you, if you could choose any superpower, what would it be? What would you choose? I bet a dozen different things came to mind. I know at least a few of you would probably say something like super strength, or maybe the ability to fly. With how popular some big supers are, heroes like Cosmic Man or Power Woman, I know that's probably first on a few lists. Big and powerful, flashy. The epitome of what you picture when you think superhero. Still, you may be rethinking your choice. Or maybe you had something else in mind. Maybe you gave even a more than a knee-jerk response. What else did you come up with? Was it invisibility? The ability to hide from sight? To do whatever you want without worrying about being seen? Not very heroic of you, but still certainly superhuman. What about the ability to breathe fire? Would sure make cosplaying as a dragon fun. Or perhaps you would choose something contrarian, like money. Just because you're a fan of the Playboy philanthropist with a pendant for justice and vigilantism. It's funny, for a lot of people, they don't think about the ability to manipulate time as being very high on that list. Until you mention it.
Gee, that sounds like a great power.
You're probably thinking,
Why didn't I think of that?
I wondered for a long time why nobody thought of time manipulation as a superpower. It just seemed so obvious to me, but I guess it's because I was born with it. A lot of people just take time for granted, I suppose. Everything exists within time. Everything is held by its laws. In a way, it's easier to forget that it's there. Now, though, I think it's because some deep part of the universe knows better than to let too many people go mucking about with the very fabric holding everything together. It's better if people didn't mess with it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are one or two comics out there that talk about the idea of a hero with the ability to manipulate time. But with all the big licensed supers out there fighting bad guys in the streets, not one of them has that power. You would sooner see a 6-year-old fight a T Rex with a tanker truck than you would see someone stop time. Why is that? I learned early on that the first reason is just because a lot of people can't even conceptualize what we're doing when we're using our superpowers. Time manipulation is so outside the scope of proper existence that when it's seen, people don't even know they're seeing it. There are a few different kinds of TMs, that's short for time manipulators, people like me that can alter the flow of time in the universe, but all of them are generally misunderstood for something else. Take me, for example. I can stop time. But what do you think that looks like to some guy watching? That's right. It looks like I just moved super fast. So they just generally think I'm a speedster or something like that. Well, what about those who can move forward or backwards in time? Same thing. They move forward enough that they can be seen, provided the whole spatial issue. Then, pop, looks like they just teleported. So someone thinks it's a teleportation power. And going back in time? Same thing, albeit with the odd accents and money you've never seen. The only thing I think could ever stand out for what it would be is if a TM was able to specifically mess with the age of a given object. But I've never seen one of us manage that. I'm sure it's theoretically possible, but even it's incredibly rare or you need to live long enough to develop it. And none of us have pulled that off. That brings me nicely to the second problem with messing with time. and why you don't see many of us. It's fucking dangerous. Simply put, despite TM showing up at about the same rate as other supers, we just don't have a long shelf life. I mentioned earlier the spatial issues. While I've personally never dealt with it, an old buddy of mine explained it to me before he died. In short, while a lot of TMs can manipulate time, the universe is made up of both time and space. Basic physics kind of stuff. But those basic physics make a big difference when you travel in time because there's a fair chance that the planet you're on won't exist beneath your feet if you go too far backward or ahead. With very few exceptions, most TMs couldn't do anything about that. And so, any jumps they made had to be in a weird, quick intervals to avoid leaving the Earth behind. Space is pretty fucking cold, and you can't breathe out there. Unfortunately, though, for someone like me with the ability to stop time, not breathing is also a big issue. As a kid, I remember seeing a bunch of comics about how cool it would be to stop time, to run around without anyone moving or even knowing what was going on. But those stories never took into account the fact that when you stop time, more than just people are frozen. And I don't mean plants or animals or bugs or anything like that. Like I said, everything in the universe is bound to time. You've heard of the speed of light, right? Maybe you haven't thought about it too much, but speed implies movement. A light year is the speed of light measured against time. So naturally, if you stop time, you stop light. Do you know what else requires time to move around? Air, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, all of those little particles that make up our ability to breathe, to survive. All of those are just as dictated by time as the rest of us. And if they aren't moving, you aren't breathing. Even worse than that, if they aren't moving, you aren't moving. Yet again, if time isn't moving, then none of those little particles are. Fully stopping time is like locking yourself in a prison of darkness, unable to move any part of your body. My mom and dad thought they were night terrors when I was a kid. Turned out, it was just my superpowers developing, and no one understanding that sleep paralysis that wore off after I passed out was me accidentally locking myself in that prison. Who knew I'd put myself back in it willingly? To be fair, I figured out what it was years ago, and I haven't used a full time stop again until today. Normally, I do what I call extreme slow mo, where you slow down time just enough so that you still got photons bouncing around and the particles in the air can move around. It's like moving through beef stew. And you can't still breathe, but it lets me do my job and save people. It also comes with a cool side effect of making these big explosions when I move through a lot of space because it displaces all the air super fast. Everyone thinks I'm a speedster because of it. And I guess for a long time, I was happy just to accept that. Until today. Man, everything was going great today. It was supposed to be nice and easy. Just go grab some schmuck that had taken some hostages. My friends and I have dealt with similar stuff hundreds of times over since we became supers 5 years ago. Why the fuck did he have a nuke? Maybe if I was a speedster, I could do something. At the very least, maybe I could have gotten away. I wouldn't just be sitting here waiting for my body to give up and pass out. It's already been 3 minutes since I've locked myself in my little time prison. It's pretty impressive I haven't blacked out already. Okay, maybe I'm being pedantic. I don't have any light and I haven't sensed that bastard set off the bomb. I just wish I had realized what he was doing. Wished I had been proactive and not only been able to react. He already pressed the button, already primed it to go off. He never intended to get out of there. He just wanted to take some supers with him and use the hostages to do it. I just wish I had a chance to do it over again. Who knows? Maybe I can figure out how to. I've got all the time in the world.